9,000 years ago, on a windswept island off the coast of Scotland, a group of people did something that took an entire summer of work. They stripped the trees bare, gathered tens of thousands of small brown seeds, and buried them in a single roasting pit nearly 15 feet across. Archaeologists who dug it up counted somewhere between 30 and 40,000 of them. Not a snack, not a treat. This was a food operation on an industrial scale, run by people who had no farms, no metal, and no writing. And the seed they were stockpiling is the same one sitting in a jar of chocolate spread in your kitchen right now. So here's the question that should bother you. Why did a food important enough to feed the first families in Scotland end up as nothing more than a flavour of coffee creamer? We've been told the almond is the king of healthy nuts. That story is missing something, and the thing it's missing has been feeding people for longer than farming has existed. Welcome back to Root Vault. If you'd rather remember what we've forgotten than lose it for good, take a second and subscribe. These stories only survive if someone keeps telling them. The seed in that pit was the hazelnut, Corylus avellana, also called the filbert or the cobnut, depending on where your grandparents grew up. And that Scottish site, a place called Stowsnag on the Isle of Colonsay, is one of the oldest large-scale food processing sites ever found in Britain. Radiocarbon dating puts it around 9,000 years back. But here's the detail that turns it from a curiosity into a strategy. When researchers studied the ancient pollen in the soil nearby, the hazel signature almost vanished in the space of a single season. These people didn't just pick a few nuts on a walk. They cut and harvested a whole stretch of woodland at once, roasted the nuts to preserve them, and ground them into a paste they could carry. They were treating this nut the way we treat wheat, as a staple, as survival. But here's the part almost nobody hears. That island barely had any large game to hunt. So people came to Colonsay for one reason: the nuts. Think about what that means. Before agriculture, before bread, before anyone in Europe had planted a field, humans were making sea crossings to reach a reliable stand of hazel. This wasn't foraging. This was the earliest kind of food security, and it ran on a tree that asked for almost nothing in return, which is exactly the thing modern nutrition forgot when it fell in love with the almond. Now here's what makes that tree remarkable, and it's the reason this video has the title it does. Plant a hazel sapling and it starts giving you nuts in about 3 to 4 years. It hits full stride somewhere around years 8 to 12. And a healthy tree keeps producing for decades, commonly cited at around 40 years, and some old trees carry on far longer than that. A single mature tree of a good variety can drop tens of pounds of nuts every autumn. The highest yielding types run somewhere between 35 and 50 pounds a season. Do that math across a small backyard row. One planting, no replanting. Decades of food from a tree you put in the ground once and mostly leave alone. That's not gardening, that's an inheritance. And here's where it goes head-to-head with the almond, so let's be fair about it. The almond wins a couple of rounds. It's got a bit more protein, more fibre, and more vitamin E per handful. That's real, and it's why almonds earned their reputation. But the hazelnut quietly wins the rounds nobody talks about. An ounce, about 21 nuts, delivers over 150% of your daily manganese, a mineral tied to bone health and protecting your cells. Half your daily copper. It carries the highest folate of any nut, which matters enormously in pregnancy. And it holds the highest level of a class of antioxidants called proanthocyanidins, found in any tree nut, the compounds behind that anti-inflammatory reputation. A review of 9 clinical trials found hazelnuts lowered bad LDL cholesterol without knocking down the good kind. So no, the hazelnut isn't just an almond with worse marketing. It fills a nutritional gap the almond leaves wide open. And then there's the part that should genuinely change how you shop. Now here's the irony that should sting a little. The almond has a secret cost that the industry would rather you didn't dwell on. It takes roughly 1 gallon of water to grow a single almond, one nut. And over 80% of the world's almonds come from California, a place that keeps running dry. When researchers ranked dozens of the state's crops by water footprint, almonds landed dead last. Meanwhile, the hazelnut, the majority of the world's supply, grows along the Black Sea coast of Turkey on mostly rainfall. No draining of an aquifer, no thirsty irrigation in a drought. The nut that fed Stone Age families on nothing but rain is still today one of the least thirsty nuts you can eat. And we've spent a decade praising the one that drinks a reservoir. Here's a number that surprises almost everyone. Turkey grows around 70% of the entire planet's hazelnuts, most of it packed into one narrow, humid strip along the Black Sea. In the United States, nearly 99% of the crop comes from a single place, Oregon's Willamette Valley, where the climate happens to mimic that Turkish coast, which sounds like a strength until you realize what it actually is. It's a bottleneck. When bad weather hit Turkey's harvest in 2014, global hazelnut prices shot up. A crop this concentrated in regions this exposed to a shifting climate is one bad season away from a shock, and that fragility feeds directly into where almost all of it ends up. So where does the world's hazelnut mountain actually go? Here's the part that should bother anyone who cares about food. One company, Ferrero, the maker of Nutella and Ferrero Rocher, buys somewhere around a quarter of the entire global supply. A quarter. And once those nuts disappear into a jar of spread, look at what's left. Nutella is only about 13% hazelnut by weight. The rest is mostly sugar and palm oil, so much that a standard serving carries close to 5 teaspoons of added sugar. So the most nutritionally interesting nut of the ancient world, the one that fed people through winters with no farms, gets bought up by the ton and buried inside a dessert, where its manganese and folate and antioxidants are doing almost no work at all. We didn't lose the hazelnut. We candy-coated it until we forgot it was ever food. And that's what this is really about. It was never just a nut. It's about the quiet difference between what a culture calls food and what it lets get demoted to flavor. 9,000 years ago, this seed was survival, worth a sea voyage, worth a summer of labor, worth burying by the tens of thousands so a family could make it to spring. Today, it's a smell added to a latte, same nut, same tree. The only thing that changed is us, and how completely we can forget the value of something that never stopped being valuable. The good news is that forgetting works both ways. You can remember it just as fast. So here's how you actually take this nut back. Start with the eating, because it's the easiest win. Buy them raw and skin on if you can. That bitter red papery skin is where a lot of the antioxidants live. To bring out the flavor, spread them on a tray and roast at around 375 degrees for about 10 minutes until the skins start to crack. Tip them into a clean kitchen towel, fold it over and rub. The skins slip right off and you're left with something that tastes like toasted butter. A small handful a day, that ounce, around 21 nuts, is the serving the clinical studies actually used. Want the chocolate hazelnut hit without the 5 teaspoons of sugar? Blend your roasted skin nuts until they turn into a loose butter, add a little cocoa and a touch of real sweetener, and you've made the thing the jar is only pretending to be, with the nut back as the main ingredient instead of an afterthought. And if you've got a patch of ground, this is the real payoff. Plant a hazel. Just know they need a partner. Most varieties won't set nuts alone, so put in at least 2 different types so they can cross-pollinate. Give them a spot with mild, wet winters and cooler summers. Keep them from drying out completely in their first years, and watch for squirrels who will absolutely try to out-harvest you. In 3 or 4 years, you'll get your first nuts, and then you'll get them again and again for decades from a tree you planted exactly once. So go back to that pit on Colonsay. 40,000 nuts, a fire, a family, 9,000 years ago, planning far enough ahead to feed themselves through a season they couldn't yet see. They didn't have a supermarket or a supplement aisle, they had a tree that gave and asked for almost nothing. That tree is still here, it still does the same thing. We're the only ones who stopped paying attention. If this changed how you'll look at the nut aisle, subscribe, because there's a whole continent of foods we've forgotten how to see. And the next one is already waiting in the vault.